Well, I hope that you are doing well. Hope that you've had a good day today. It certainly has been a pretty good day for me because it is like 70 something degrees outside today, I think it was. So it beats being cold all the time. I know that there are a couple of people in our church family that are struggling right now, and we certainly want to remember them in our prayers and do anything that we can to help them get through the difficult times that they are experiencing right now. We're still in James chapter 2. We weren't able to do a video last week because of some technical issues because of the snowstorm that came through. However, we're back tonight and we're ready to jump in to James chapter 2 again. If you haven't read James chapter 2, pause the video, go read James chapter 2, and then come back and we will get started. We'll read James chapter 2 starting in verse 14. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is it? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, "You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works." You believe that there is one God? You do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. In the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. In the same way, was not also Rahab the prostitute justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. Well, I think that you have probably guessed the topic for discussion tonight. It is the topic of faith and works. Now, it's my opinion, observation, that a majority of theological disputes come from the topic that we are studying tonight. There are so many disputes on what can faith do for you, especially when it comes to your salvation, and what can works do for you when it comes to your salvation. How are faith and works, how do they go together? Is faith and works mutually exclusive? Do they go hand in hand? What about it? Because some people might say, it seems that Paul was more of a faith guy and wasn't a works guy at all, but James is more of a faith and works, and you can't be justified without works. Faith alone can't save. What's the deal? A lot of theological disputes have stemmed from, like we have said, this topic of faith and works. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Now, we all know the answer to that question, especially because we've kept reading. The answer is nothing. It does nothing for you if you have faith and you don't have works. And James, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, but he further illustrates that point by saying this. Can that faith save him? Well, the answer to that question again is no. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is it? James says this, hey, I've already told you that a faith that's not active a faith that doesn't have works involved in it, it's good for nothing. But let me illustrate that point to you. James says, let's suppose that we have this person that is, they're just filthy, really. Their clothes, they're not what your average person would have on their back. They lack clothes. Their clothes don't look good. They're poor. That's the idea of this image. They don't have a lot of food. In fact, they're lacking in food. They need food. They're hungry. And this person comes up to them, and they can see it. They can see that they need clothes, and they can see that they need food. They can see they're poor. And they say to them, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled." They say that. And they actually even might believe what they're saying. They say those words, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled." But, James says, they don't give them the things needed for the body. They don't do anything. What good is it? Well, again, the answer to that question is nothing. Because what did you do for the poor person? Well, you haven't helped them out in any way. Nothing in their situation has gotten any better from the person in the story, their lack of doing anything. Now, we'll talk about that. I had a thought that we might discuss right there, but we'll get to that a little bit later. James then goes on, "So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." Now, I don't know about you, but what James says there is, hey, look, if you have faith and you don't have works, what good is it? It's good for nothing. It's dead. It's useless. It's meaningless. So somehow we're going to talk about our faith has to have works involved, or it's good for nothing. Faith. You know, we talked about that a little bit 2 weeks ago. We said that faith is a trust in God, but we further defined that, and you remember that we said faith is trusting God to do what God said He would do when we do what He has asked us to do. Now, I'll say it again because I know the definition is probably long. Faith is trusting God to do what God said He would do when we do, now that word right there is critical, do what God has asked us to do. Faith involves action. Dead faith doesn't involve action. Dead faith doesn't do anything. Dead faith is the faith that the person who looked at the poor person and told them, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled," that is dead faith. It doesn't do anything. There's no action involved in that. Biblical faith, the faith that you and I are supposed to have, is a faith that involves action. It involves doing something. I think, especially in the theological disputes, like we've said, that people might have over this topic of faith, especially, I think sometimes those people might not have an accurate definition of faith, and let me tell you what I mean by that. I think that faith in some religious circles is now synonymous with belief. So I think some people have started to equate faith with belief. That is all faith is. Faith is just belief. But, as we're going to see later on, that's just not true, and James illustrates that point. Faith is just not belief. But someone will say, verse 18, But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God? You do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. To me, that's probably one of the most frightening passages in the entire New Testament. Going back to this idea that we just mentioned a few minutes ago, that faith to some people has become synonymous with belief. This verse, if that's true, if somebody has as their definition of faith, faith is belief, this verse ought to terrify them. You believe that there is one God. You do well. True? Yeah, it's true. You and I, we had to believe in God. Well, I mean, in order for us to be saved, we had to believe in God. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why we believe in God. And what that's done for us because we believe in God. So yeah, the people who believe in God, they do well. But the demons believe and they shudder. The demons, they believe that God is God. They know that God exists. So hold on just a second. If we, as people of faith, if we do well in believing that there is one God, and the demons also believe that there is one God, what sets us, believers, apart from the demons? Well, maybe maybe we need to adjust our definition of faith a little bit if our definition is belief in God. You see, the demons, they know, like we've said, that God is one and that He exists, but they don't do anything about it. They don't act on that belief. What sets us apart from the demons is that we have chosen to do something with our belief in God, and they haven't. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person? Now hold on just a second. Who is the foolish person in James chapter 2 in verse 20? Who's the foolish person that he is referring to? It is the person that looked at the poor person and said, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled," and they didn't do a thing for the poor person. That's the foolish person. The foolish person says, you know what? I have faith and my faith is totally separate from the works that I do. No. That is the foolish person. The foolish person says faith and works, they're mutually exclusive. You have the category of faith and then you have the category of works. And you want to be in the category of faith only. That's the foolish person. But do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? It's like James is saying, look, if you haven't seen it already, that faith apart from works is useless. If you haven't already seen that illustrated, let me illustrate it for you again. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? Now, we're going to take a quick timeout there, and we're going to go to Genesis chapter 22, and we're not going to finish it tonight, and we'll have to pick up there again next Wednesday because we have about 5 minutes left. But we need to remind ourselves of the story that we find in Genesis chapter 22 rather, because it plays a big part in the point that James is about to make. Genesis chapter 2, we'll start in verse 1. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said to him, Here I am. He said, Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So it's pretty heavy starting out in Genesis chapter 22 because we know how much Abraham loves his son Isaac. It's his only son. And God comes to him and he says, Abraham, yeah, I know that you love your son Isaac, and I know that he's your only son, but I need you to take him to the land of Moriah, and I need you to offer him there as a burnt offering. I need you to kill your son, to sacrifice him. Verse 3, So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. So really, it's in verse 3 that after the heavy-hitting verses that came before verse 3, we might think, surely he's not going to do it. I mean, surely Abraham's not going to sacrifice his only son whom he loves. Surely he's not going to do that. But verse 3 makes it pretty clear. Abraham rises up early in the morning. He gets the wood ready for the burnt offering. He gets all the supplies that he needs to carry out the sacrifice that God has told him to carry out. And they're going to the land of Moriah. In 3 days, Abraham sees the place, but it's still a ways in the distance. They still have a way, they still have to travel a good bit to get to the place where they're going. Verse 5, Then Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. You see, there's a element of faith and trust there. Did you catch that at the bottom part of verse 5? I and the boy will go over there and worship and come again to you. Who's coming again to the servants? Abraham only? No. Abraham and Isaac. Okay. Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, his son. He tells Isaac, I need you to carry the wood for this sacrifice. And he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So they went, both of them together. So Abraham gives the wood to Isaac. Isaac, you carry this wood. Abraham gets the fire and the knife. And he's going to the place where he knows he's going to sacrifice his son. Isaac said to his father, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. He said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? So Isaac's carrying this wood. He sees that Abraham has the things essential for making a fire. And he sees that he has a knife. But he's like, okay, look, something just doesn't add up here. I have the wood. You have the things needed to start the fire and the knife, and you have a knife. Where's the animal that we're about to sacrifice? Abraham said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went, both of them together. Verse 9, when they had come to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on top of the altar on top of the wood. Abraham, Dad, where's the lamb? Don't worry about it. They get up there, Abraham lays out the wood. Then he grabs his son. Remember, his only son, whom he loves. And he puts him on top. And here it is. This is the scene in Genesis chapter 22. Abraham is doing what God has told him to do. And we will have to pick up there again next week because we are out of time. I did that on purpose. I'm sorry. I left us at a big climactic point, but we'll finish up Abraham next week. We'll look at the application that James makes with that story, and then we'll move on to another example he gives. I hope that you have a very good week, and I can't wait to see everybody on Sunday. If you're hurting and you're struggling and you need help in any way, please let us know. We really want to help you. Thank you for watching the video tonight, and God bless.